Chen was elbow-deep in a clogged waste recycler when the aliens arrived. Not exactly the heroic moment you'd expect from humanity's first contact, but then again, nothing about Kai's life had ever been remotely heroic. Piece of garbage station, piece of garbage plumbing, piece of garbage job, he muttered, wrestling with a particularly stubborn blockage. The neural implant behind his left ear, a sketchy knockoff he'd gotten from a clinic in the Titan underground, flickered its usual error light. Thing had been broken for 3 years, ever since the neural mesh had partially fused with his auditory cortex in what the back-alley doc had cheerfully called an oopsie. Now it just made this weird humming sound whenever Kai got particularly annoyed, which was approximately 18 hours a day. Europa Station hung in the void like a rusty Christmas ornament, all solar panels and habitat rings spinning lazily around Jupiter's ice-covered moon. Home to 12,000 souls who'd rather be anywhere else, doing anything else. Kai fit right in. Another day, another credit, he grumbled, finally clearing the blockage with a satisfying pop. Brown sludge splattered across his maintenance coveralls, the same coveralls he'd been wearing for 6 months because the station's laundry service had been temporarily suspended since the last budget cuts. The implant hummed again, louder this time. Yeah, I know you're broken, Kai said to the empty maintenance bay. Join the club. We've got jackets. That's when the lights went out. Emergency lighting bathed everything in hellish red as the station's AI announced in its perpetually cheerful voice, "Attention residents. We are receiving an unscheduled diplomatic transmission. Please remain calm while we attempt to establish communications." Kai snorted. Diplomatic transmission my ass. Probably another trade delegation from the Mars colonies here to inspect our facilities. He made air quotes with his grimy hands. Hope they like the smell of recycled toilet water. The humming from his implant had become a full-on buzz now, like an angry wasp trapped in his skull. The lights came back on, and Kai found himself staring at Captain Morrison, the station commander, flanked by 2 security officers who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. Morrison was pale, paler than usual, which was saying something for a man who spent his life in artificial light. Chen, Morrison said, his voice cracking slightly. We need to talk. If this is about the waste recycler in Section 7, I already filed a report. Things held together with prayer and duct tape. It's not about the recycler. Morrison glanced at the security officers. There's a ship. Outside. A big one. Kai wiped his hands on his coveralls. And this concerns the maintenance staff how? They're asking for you. By name. The buzzing in Kai's head stopped. Complete silence, which was somehow more unsettling than the noise. Come again. The ship. The aliens. They want to speak with Ambassador Chen. Kai laughed, a short, bitter sound that echoed off the maintenance bay's metal walls. Ambassador. Captain, I clean toilets for a living. I think you've got the wrong Chen. But Morrison wasn't laughing. Neither were the security officers. In fact, they were looking at Kai like he'd just sprouted a second head. We've confirmed your identity 17 times, Morrison said quietly. They're very specific. Kai Chen, Maintenance Technician 3rd Class, Neural Implant Serial Number NX 4471. They've been monitoring your communications for 3 years. The broken implant. The humming. The complaints he'd been muttering to himself every day for 3 years while he fixed broken things and cleaned up other people's messes. That's impossible, Kai said, but even as the words left his mouth, he was remembering all those times he'd talked to himself, all those rants about the state of the station, about humanity's future, about how nobody ever listened to the people who actually kept things running. The implant had been listening. And apparently, so had someone else. The walk to the docking bay felt like a funeral march. Crew members lined the corridors, whispering and pointing. Kai had gone from invisible maintenance worker to the center of attention in about 15 minutes, and he hated every second of it. The alien ship was impossible to miss through the observation windows, a sleek, crystalline structure that made Europa Station look like a rust bucket by comparison. Which, to be fair, it was. General Vextar was waiting in the docking bay, all 7 feet of her, with skin that shifted between deep purple and silver depending on the angle of the light. She wore what looked like military dress uniform, complete with medals that hummed with their own internal energy. She looked directly at Kai and did something that would haunt his dreams for the rest of his life. She saluted him. "Ambassador Chen," she said, her voice carrying the weight of authority and something that sounded suspiciously like respect. "It is an honor to finally meet you in person, sir." "Sir." A space janitor who'd been wearing the same coveralls for 6 months. "Sir." Kai looked around the docking bay, hoping to find someone, anyone, who might actually deserve that title. But every face was turned toward him, waiting. "I think there's been a mistake," he said finally. General Vextar's head tilted in what might have been confusion. "Your communications have been most enlightening, Ambassador. Your insights into the fundamental inefficiencies of hierarchical systems, your observations about the disconnect between leadership and practical implementation, your philosophical discussions about the dignity of essential labor, they have shaped our understanding of human civilization." The broken implant. 3 years of complaints and muttered observations about why nothing worked the way it was supposed to. 3 years of a janitor's perspective on the absurdity of the universe. And somehow, the aliens had been listening. More than that, they'd been taking notes. The briefing room had never seen anything like this. General Vextar sat across from Kai, her silver-purple skin rippling with what he was learning to recognize as amusement. Captain Morrison looked like he was having a prolonged panic attack. The rest of the senior staff kept glancing between Kai and the alien general like they were watching the universe's most surreal tennis match. "Let me get this straight," Kai said, leaning back in his chair with the kind of casual disrespect that made Morrison wince. "My broken brain implant has been accidentally broadcasting on some ancient alien frequency. And you've been listening to me complain about clogged toilets for 3 years. The precursor network," Vextar confirmed. "A communication system built by the first galactic civilization, designed to translate not just words, but intent, emotion, the deeper meaning behind thought. Most species require decades of training to access it properly. And I've been doing it by accident." "Indeed. Your neural implant, while primitive by our standards, somehow interfaced with a dormant precursor node embedded in this station's quantum processing core. We believe it was installed during the initial construction and forgotten." Kai rubbed his temples. The implant had stopped buzzing entirely now, which was somehow more unnerving than the constant noise. "So what exactly have I been saying?" Vextar activated a holographic display. Kai's voice filled the room, but the words were overlaid with swirling patterns of light and color, the alien translation of his intent. "Another day fixing what the idiots upstairs broke," came his recorded voice from last Tuesday. The hologram showed cascading geometric patterns that pulsed with frustrated energy. "Your words," Vextar explained, "were interpreted as, the cyclical nature of repair in hierarchical systems reveals the fundamental disconnect between decision-makers and consequences. Those who hold power rarely understand the true cost of their choices." Morrison choked on his coffee. "Last month," Vextar continued, "when you said, and I quote, 'Nobody listens to the people who actually know how things work,' our xenopsychologists interpreted it as a profound commentary on the failure of traditional power structures to incorporate ground-level expertise." Kai stared at the hologram. "I was talking about the broken air recycler in Section 12. Management kept ignoring my repair requests." "Yes. And your frustration resonated across 17 star systems. Your observations about the dignity of essential labor, the wisdom found in maintenance and repair, the way true understanding comes from working with your hands, these concepts formed the basis of our cultural evaluation of humanity." The room fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Kai became acutely aware that everyone was staring at him. "Cultural evaluation?" he asked. Vextar's skin shifted to a deeper purple. The Galactic Confederation has been observing Earth for potential membership. We typically send diplomatic teams, conduct formal interviews with world leaders, analyze governmental structures. But your accidental broadcasts provided something far more valuable, an unfiltered perspective from someone with no agenda, no political positioning. Pure, authentic insight. You're telling me Earth's application to your space club depends on the rants of a janitor? The Confederation values wisdom over authority, understanding over power. Your communications demonstrated both. Which brings us to why I'm here. Vexstar leaned forward. The Confederation Council is prepared to offer Earth provisional membership, with you as our primary cultural liaison. Kai laughed, not the bitter sound from before, but something with an edge of hysteria. I clean toilets. You understand systems. You see how things actually work versus how they're supposed to work. You speak truth without decoration or political calculation. Vexstar's skin rippled again. These are rare qualities in leaders. I'm not a leader. I'm nobody. Perhaps. But nobody has been teaching a galactic civilization about the value of honest work and authentic communication for 3 years. The weight of it hit him then. Earth's future, hanging on the observations of a man who'd been talking to himself while unclogging drains. The cosmic joke was so perfect it almost hurt. What happens if I say no? If I tell them I'm just a maintenance worker who got lucky with a broken implant? Vexstar's expression grew serious. The Confederation would reassess. Send traditional diplomatic teams. Evaluate Earth's leaders through conventional metrics, military strength, economic output, political stability. And, based on our preliminary observations of your planetary governments. She made a sound that might have been a sigh. Earth would likely be classified as pre-civilized and quarantined for another century. Maybe 2. Kai looked around the room. Morrison was pale. The other officers looked like they'd been hit by a transport shuttle. The future of human civilization, and it came down to whether a janitor was willing to keep pretending he was something he wasn't. There's another option, Vexstar said quietly. Continue as you are. Keep being exactly who you've always been. Your authentic voice, your real perspective, that's what resonated with us. We don't need you to become a diplomat. We need you to remain Chen, maintenance technician 3rd class, who sees the universe clearly because he's never been important enough to lie about it. The broken implant gave a single, soft chime. Kai stood up, stretched, and looked out the observation window at the crystalline alien ship. Then he turned to Captain Morrison. I'm going to need better coveralls, he said. And a raise. You can't have the galaxy's most important janitor wearing 6-month-old work clothes. Morrison nodded rapidly. Done. Absolutely done. Kai turned back to Vexstar. And I want a written guarantee that I still get to fix things. Real things. Broken toilets, faulty recyclers, whatever needs repair. I'm not sitting in board meetings talking about nothing. Agreed. One more thing. Kai grinned, and for the first time in 3 years, it felt genuine. Next time you want to eavesdrop on someone's private thoughts, maybe send a manual first. This whole accidental ambassador thing could have been avoided with better documentation. Vexstar's skin shifted to what he was learning to recognize as amusement. I shall make a note for our technical writers. As they shook hands, or rather, as Kai shook what passed for Vexstar's hand, he realized something profound. He'd spent his whole life being invisible, being nobody, being the guy who cleaned up other people's messes. Turns out, that was exactly the qualification the universe had been looking for.